Welcome to Serious Business on NDTV. 30 minutes of hard business news. One topic, one speaker, and a conversation that's relevant to you. I'm Manvi Sinha Dhillon. I'm sure you're increasingly familiar with this term, Global Capability Centers or GCCs. GCCs are, very roughly speaking, offshore units of multinational corporations. And earlier this year, the RBI State of the Economy report highlighted the fact that India was rapidly emerging as a global leader in hosting global capability centers. So much so that GCCs are now a separate line item in India's GDP breakdown or calculations, roughly $40 billion and contributing about 1% of India's GDP. PwC estimates that India houses over 1,600 GCCs currently. By 2025, the number is likely to hit 1,900 centers with a market size of $60 billion. So I'm very pleased to welcome Vikram Ahuja, Managing Director of ANSR, a company that specializes in setting up global capability centers in India for its partners. Vikram, thank you for joining us on NDTV. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Manvi. Good to be here.
So I'm going to start with the basics, even though in my introduction I indicated that many are familiar with this term, but I think it's always worth starting with the basics. So if you had to describe a global capability center, how would you describe it? And then where does ANSR come in?
Sure. So, at its core, a global capability center is an extended office of a company in a location that is typically rich in talent and set up with the purpose of accessing, top skilled professionals and with the purpose of doing work that is typically not done in home location. A lot of this today centers around technology, R&D, innovation. And the idea of a global capability center really is, expanding on this notion of global work, right? Today, great talent is in markets where a lot of companies don't have a setup. And the idea of a global capability center is to essentially access that talent and take advantage of, a global workforce.
So, without naming specific partners and clients, it would be interesting to get a sense of the diversity of companies setting up global capability centers in India. I'm still right now trying to present an A to Z sort of guide for the uninitiated.
Sure. Yeah, so, this is not a new phenomena. Global capability centers or GCCs have been around for the last 2 decades, if not more. What has happened, I think, more recently, of course, is that the momentum around this sector has really picked up. And I think one of the things that the pandemic did is made global work mainstream. But if you largely look at the industry, there's about close to about 1,600 GCCs in India today, employing about 1.5 million professionals. And these represent a wide sector of industries and domains, right? So if you look at banks, you've got some of the top banks globally that have a GCC, companies like Citibank and JP Morgan and National Australia Bank and the likes of those. If you look at retailers, you've got everyone from Walmart and Target to Nike. Any sort of large retail company today will have a presence as a GCC. If you look at some of the newer age technology-led industry players, companies like Airbnb, Google, Amazon, Facebook, all of these have GCCs as well. And essentially anything in between, right? Today, every company, every industry is moving towards becoming a technology company at the core of it. And so therefore, if you look at the representation of companies, you take any industry, the top 10 companies, you'll easily see 3 or 4 of them have some sort of a presence, an own center, their own employees that are building the future of that company today in a market like India.
And, you alluded to the fact that, of course, they've been around for 2 decades, but there's been a real step up in momentum in the more recent past. Some of this has to do with the pandemic and what that taught us about, models for business and operations in a sense, but I don't want to bring my analysis into this. I wanted to get a sense from you on why we see the momentum now at a different level.
Sure. So I think 3 things that have happened are crucial to understand why GCCs are where they are today. So one, every company today is a technology company, right? If you look at what's happening with AI today, it's everywhere. Everyone's talking about the absolute transformation a technology like AI is going to bring. And AI is not alone. You've got, everything from data science and engineering to cloud to, mobile. Everything around technology is moving at such a rapid pace today that every industry today is essentially building themselves out to be a technology-led play, right? And what that means is for most businesses today, they need to be thinking about technology as core to their business. It can't be something that is built on the outside and brought in. This needs to be something that is built internally. You have control, you own the IP, you are able to decide your own destiny, so as to speak, right? So that's, I think, the number one most crucial aspect of this. Second, we are in a situation today where you have tremendous talent coming out of markets like India, right? Today, the world is building in India because we've got, the top of the stack talent as far as product, engineering, technology, innovation, design, creative, right? We've got about 4.5 million professionals involved in the technology sector. And, all of these professionals today are top of their game, right? So what that means is that, you can no longer be building in isolation in markets like the US or the UK or, or Europe and leave aside top talent that is sitting in markets like India. Today, if you want to be successful, you need to build the best teams, and the best teams mean that you need to have the best talent, which is in markets like India. So therefore, to access the best talent, you need to have a presence where the best talent is. That's number two. And number three is, like I mentioned earlier, what the pandemic did is it really sort of made people comfortable with the fact that you can essentially work from anywhere, right? Yes. And there are ways to support that. And, as much as we all thought that you need to be in an office to be productive, overnight we were all sitting behind a computer screen and work still happened and life still went on. And so what the pandemic has really sort of taught us is that, global work and distributed work is possible when it is set up within the right framework and it has the right structure. And I think that has really sort of mainstreamed this concept of building global teams, which is why you're hearing so much about global capability centers today, because more and more companies today are realizing that they need to be where the talent is, technology is core, and they're able to do it now in a distributed fashion.
So now ANSR, and what exactly you do for your partners who are looking to set up a global capability center in India?
Sure. So, at ANSR, we've been around now for about 18 years. We started 18 years ago. We've been very fortunate to be at the forefront of seeing global centers being set up. We started out as a company building joint ventures with our customers. That was the only way to show that we had skin in the game and, we had enough commitment to see their success through, because at that point, this model was so untested and, there was so much skepticism around doing what we were doing. But essentially at ANSR, think of us as building the operating system for global work. Our belief is that the future of work is companies anywhere can build anywhere. And we want to build the entire underlying infrastructure to make that possible. So we do four things. First is we provide market intelligence and advisory. So we help companies think about where they should be building a global center, right? Should it be in India? Should it be in Poland? Should it be in Argentina? Should it be in Canada? And once companies decide where, we help them think about what sort of skills and capabilities. So even in India, should it be a Bangalore or a Hyderabad or a Pune or a Gurgaon? And then within these centers, what sort of skills, right? So there's a large part of work that we do today, which is around research, advisory, and consulting. The second part of what we do is everything to do with talent, right? And India is today, as broad a market, it is an extremely competitive place to hire top talent. So we run our own product called Talent 500. It's a marketplace of about close to 2 million professionals. And, it's the largest directory for professionals working in global centers. So it's a members-only network, and every member is pre-vetted and pre-curated, which means that we're providing companies easy access to top talent without a lot of the overheads involved. The third thing that we do is everything to do with infrastructure, which means workspace, procurement, networks, laptops, everything to do with that. So we want to make sure that offices for these global companies are on par or better than the offices that they have in home locations, so that employees feel, integrated and as part of the culture. And a lot of what we do is work with them to bring that to life. And then the last thing that we do is what we call as operation services, which means everything to do to keep a center running, right? So your payroll, your compliance, legal, audit, tax, etc. So in essence, when a company works with us, we are the only partner that they need to build, manage, set up, and run a center like this, which if you think about, the idea of setting up a center that could employ, 2,000, 3,000, 10,000, in some cases 20,000 employees can be very overwhelming for a business,
Of
right? I
course.
mean, you're going to a market like India, you need to understand, the complexities of labor laws and real estate and how to hire people and how to retain them and how to structure compensation and keep it attractive and so on. And, what we say at ANSR is forget about all of that. We will come in and take care of everything for you. You just focus on, bringing the top people into your company and getting the best work done, right? And we take care of everything else.
Well, first of all, I should apologize for saying ANSR, and I should have been on the page and said answer. The penny dropped late, so apologies
No,
for
that's
that.
absolutely fine.
But coming back to answer, I get it. Very compelling for your partner. And from what I understand, one estimate says you've got about 20% share in Fortune 500 business. You're occupying, 12 million square feet of real estate. And that's very compelling, as I said, for your partner. But what I'm trying to understand is, what does that mean for ANSR itself? I mean, this seems like you're taking on all the tough or heavy lifting, and that includes high capital up front, or am I missing something here?
No, so not really. There is some method to the madness. We've been doing this long enough today where we understand that there's a very structured way to approach this, and usually that structure is driven by a very collaborative partnership with our customers. So when we partner with a global company, and today we work with, like you mentioned, 20% of the Fortune 500 GCCs in India are set up by us, and so we are easily a market leader in this space. When we work with our customers, we think of them as partners. We work, hand in hand in terms of defining their growth plans and, their trajectory. And we're in the market representing them. So at all points, we have a very calculated view into how they're going to grow and when. And so a lot of the investments that are made are keeping in mind this growth trajectory. So, what we're trying to avoid is a scenario where you're suddenly having to put up a whole bunch of upfront capital, take on a whole bunch of risk, both legally and operationally, and then suddenly realize 6 months later or 12 months later that this model doesn't work for you, right? That is unfortunately a lot of global companies that have set up GCCs and not seen success have had issues because of that, right? Too much upfront risk, a lot of unknowns, right? Going in with very impulsive decisions, and that doesn't work when you're trying to work in a market like India. So we define playbooks across each one of these work streams, right? And every part of this journey is then built in collaboration with our partners, keeping both their growth as well as, of course, our involvement and commitment to seeing this through, right? So risks are minimal because it's usually based on some sort of a growth plan. And again, I think this is the big differentiator that we bring. We're a technology company ourselves. We use a lot of AI. We use a lot of data and automation in how we work. And what that means is our teams operate with a lot of efficiency. Today, we've got an AI platform around recruiting, which allows us to hire about 60% faster because we use data to essentially make predictions on who's a good fit. What that also allows us to do is provide a very fair and transparent process to candidates, removing biases that might exist in the process. So it's a fair situation on both sides. And, what we've realized is to be in the game, we need to play the game. So we're continuously disrupting ourselves through technology and bringing in, newer innovation models in how we operate. So for example, we work in a very simple subscription-based model. So no upfront spends, no upfront cost. You pay as you go, which means your risks are minimal and, you see progress and you pay us accordingly, right? So that works very well for everyone involved.
So it works well for your partners again because, their risks are minimal. And, correct me again if I'm getting the wrong end of the stick here, but for you, hypothetically, if it doesn't work out for whatever reason with a particular partner, you have the portfolio to redeploy the space, physical space, and the talent. Is that how you
Yeah.
de-risk?
Yeah, so Manvi, at the core of it, you're right in saying that because we cover such a wide spectrum of customers at any time, we have the opportunity to reuse our inventory and so on and so forth. But the truth is that in our 18 years of history, we've almost never seen a GCC that has failed.
Okay.
And the reason for that is these are global companies that have a very clear intent, that have a mission, they have a purpose. They are coming here to redefine their own growth trajectories. They're looking to build something phenomenal. And they're investing a lot of their time and effort into doing this. And, it's their reputation on the line as well. So when we go into the market, one of the things that we do upfront is really make sure that we can represent the opportunity well, to the professionals, but also make sure that companies on the other side understand what they're getting into. So there's a lot of work that happens up front. And once you're operational, it's like a moving train. I mean, it moves along very steadily, but also almost never stops because companies see so much success in this model, right? You're getting great talent. You are doing phenomenal work. You're moving faster than your competitors. You have tremendous cost advantages because now rather than outsourcing or giving it to third parties or building in an expensive location, you're hiring top talent and you're able to pay them more. And you're keeping attrition low and productivity high. It's a great combination that works very well. So we've never really seen failure. In fact, as you brought that up, it's the first time that I actually thought about the fact that, what it means to us is that some of that risk could be balanced, but the reality is we go into every engagement ensuring that we know it'll be a success because for us, it becomes a reputational risk as well to not see it succeed. So we've seen success happen because the model itself is built for success. And I think the growth of the industry sort of proves the fact that, companies coming in are coming so because they see other competitors and peers succeeding with these models.
On that note, we're going to take a break, and when we return, we'll talk about, future trends and prepping for that. What's ANSR doing on that front? That's after a quick break. Welcome back to Serious Business on NDTV. We're in conversation today with Vikram Ahuja, Managing Director of ANSR. I started off this conversation saying ANSR, and well, I've learned something on nomenclature as well along the way. Vikram, this is a fascinating space, and you've been riding the growth in global capability centers in India based on, a demonstrated execution track record. But I wanted to ask you about future-ready capabilities that are going to be a focus area here on. What are they? And, what does that mean for ANSR in terms of prepping for that?
Sure. So, Manvi, I'd just like to start by saying that we're extremely excited about where we are as an industry. This is literally the start of what is going to be a transformational segment within Indian IT and Indian tech. And when we talk about Make in India, there's no bigger Make in India story than what's happening within GCCs, right? Global companies are coming in now 1 to 2 a month, setting up large centers, bringing in investment, creating jobs. It's phenomenal. In terms of future trends, there's some very interesting things happening globally. I started off by saying that one of the main drivers for GCCs is the fact that every company today is becoming a technology company. And when you look at newer technologies that are coming into market, you look at AI, there is a huge shortage of talent globally when companies are looking to deploy AI into their organizations. In fact, I was reading somewhere that there is, something like a 30 to 35% gap between demand and supply today, where top talent that is required is not being hired because there just isn't enough people in the market in markets like the US, right? A lot of that talent today is being built and is made available in markets like India. So one of the biggest trends that we're seeing today is that a lot of the fundamental growth around new technology stacks like AI will will happen out of India. We'll become the nerve center of driving a lot of this, which is going to be very exciting. I think the second big trend that is happening is global roles being hired in India, which means that this is no longer an outpost or an offshore. In fact, there is no more concept of offshore and onshore. It is both onshore and offshore at the same time. It's one company, right? And when you look at what GCCs do, they've removed the notion of outsourcing because you're now insourcing. These are your own employees. And what that means is that there is going to be a shift of power or a balancing of power in terms of decision making and strategic importance. So we're seeing, at least about 5,000 global roles being hired out of India, and these include CIOs, CEOs of global Fortune, 500 and global 2,000 companies. And that is phenomenal. Imagine, now you have a business that is, headquartered somewhere, but has the nerve center of their technology, innovation, and growth sitting out of, a city like Bangalore or Hyderabad. And that's essentially where the world is headed to. And I think the third trend that we're seeing is, a very interesting interplay between, large enterprises and startups, but also large enterprises and service providers. And I want to sort of maybe clarify one point that, gets confused. Global capability centers don't compete with service providers. In fact, in many ways, we collaborate because they're both two sides of the same coin. And so what we're seeing is that global capability centers are now becoming, very critical for large enterprises to build partnerships with startups that might be innovating in their sectors or with service providers that are going to continue to add value. But, a lot of that decision making and a lot of that partnership sort of anchors sit out of the GCC, right? So the GCC starts to take on more importance in defining what the future strategy of a large global company looks like, right? So I think these are largely the three trends that we see from a market perspective.
Sure.
I think from a talent landscape perspective, which is very interesting for India alone. Again, I mentioned we've got about 1.5 million professionals working for GCCs. Tremendous opportunities for professionals to, take on opportunities that'll give them tremendous growth in career, but also work on some phenomenal products, right? Build and innovate for some of the world's largest companies. Lots of upskilling that is going to happen because the needs of these global centers are going to evolve at a much faster pace, which means professionals will then need to continue to upskill and make themselves ready for the opportunities that are available. And, I think most importantly, going back to what I was saying, this is really our opportunity to make India as the center, right? When we talk about, manufacturing and technology and software and so on and so forth, the Make in India story in software and technology is coming true within GCCs as it is in manufacturing. And it's a great time for us to be here. So very excited in terms of where we're headed with this trend.
I think we've got 20 seconds left, but I have to ask you, if there's one thing that keeps you a bit nervous about the future, navigating all of this opportunity with steady success, what would you say is that one slightly nervy area?
Well, I think for us, it is, I think from a macro standpoint, just hoping that we can get, infrastructure and support ready for companies that are coming, because I think the growth is going to be explosive. And us for a company, it's just going to be continuing to, build great teams ourselves and keep up with the pace of what's happening in the industry. So it's a great problem to have, but it's still a problem to solve.
Well, Vikram, I should warn you, we're going to be leaning on you for more frequent conversations. So thank you very much for joining us today, and look forward to keeping this conversation alive, because this is a space that's going to continue to be a very exciting one. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I look forward to it. Thank you. Bye-bye.